Hey everyone, hopefully you're having a good day. My name's Andy. My channel's Finding Value. We're going to do our daily uranium technical trading analysis update. Again, I don't trade these things. I usually just buy them and hold on. I buy it when the ratios are cheap, and then I hold on until they're expensive. Usually that holding time frame can be anywhere from 5 to 10 years. Usually it matches the real estate cycle. And what I propose is that real estate prices all assets because real estate impacts interest rates. So that's kind of my little prelude here. But let's jump into the charts. Again, this is just my financial opinion. Do not take it as advice. Let's roll. So here we go. So starting at uranium, we're at 42.55, and you can see this path that we've taken so far. Very steep path going on up, and we're in a little bit of a pullback. Looking at a little bit longer term view, this is what it looks like with some resistance support lines drawn in. We were coming up in this upward channel, broke to the upside, sliced through this resistance line, and now I think we're looking at it as support at the $40 level. We'll see if we need to use that support when we get there. Looking at it from a big picture view of URNM, this is the North Shore Global Uranium Mining ETF. We're coming up in this channel, and what I'm trying to figure out is, are we going to try to break and go back to the upside, or are we going to pull back to the lower end of this channel, which is a possibility, but it's not 100% likelihood. We have to find out what this thing's doing. I do think we have more consolidation ahead of us. I'm going to go to the daily here and talk about it. This is what the daily looks like on each candlestick being a daily candlestick, one trading day. We do have a black candlestick and a red candlestick before it. What that means is we kind of came down, we bounced up, we're coming into some sellers. I think we're probably going to come back down a little bit over the next few days. But I'm trying to see what this thing looks like in terms of a bouncing. It's probably going to bounce around a lot. So I still think we're in a consolidation pattern where we could go sideways to lower. How much lower? That's yet to be determined. And we're seeing it across a lot of these companies. Here's Camco. It's the same thing on Camco. It's like we're fighting to come up. We're coming into some resistance, and we're probably going to bounce sideways for a little bit. Next Gen Energy. I mean, this one finished pretty strong. Again, we still have this 2 really large down days, a lot of momentum, and the buyers are trying to fight back up, but they're not making much headway. So I still think we've got to consolidate for a little bit. Fission uranium, I mean, it doesn't look too bad, but usually I don't see patterns that look like this move higher. It looks like they're going to come and bounce and consolidate for a little bit. Same with Sky Harbor. If I were to guess on Sky Harbor by looking at these big selling pressure candlestick days in here, it sold off. It struggled to come back up. It sold off again. I think there's still some movement to sideways to down is what I'm seeing in the charts. UEXCF, this one looks a little bit different. And the reason so is if you look at the bottom here, you've got these big buying pressure candlesticks, bullish engulfing, bullish piercing. There's a lot of support where this red line is at the 31, 32 cent area. We came on down, we hit all this support, and there's lots of buying pressure, not much selling pressure here. I think this could potentially head higher at any point. Maybe it has a little bit longer to go, but it's looking better. This would be one that I actually like from a chart pattern perspective. These look different because they're inverted the other way. They tried to come up, but the sellers keep pummeling them down, and the buyers don't really have a good answer. So I would say sideways to a little bit lower versus a pattern that's got big bullish buying pressure candlesticks like this, where it looks like it's ready to come back up. That's the two differences. And you can see all the selling pressure in this area here, and the buyers had no response, and it continued to sell off until you get some buying pressure like down here. Buying pressure up, a nice little leak off of sellers back to the beginning of it, And right here's a good buy point because you got a lot of support down here. So we do have support down here. I think it looks pretty good right here. It's not too bad. Base load, it broke through its resistance line, cut, a knife cutting through butter like it wasn't even there. Boom, boom, boom. Got these small little down days that usually is pretty normal on a move up. You kind of alternate between large up days and small down days, these old profit taking days. That one looks good. Fission, you can kind of see that we're trying to slow the momentum downward. It's coming up. So maybe a little bit longer before we move on, perhaps higher. The support's a little bit underneath it, so it could fall a little bit if it were to go down. Standard uranium, I mean, this one looks pretty good to me. And the reason I would say that is you got this nice trend line. We cut through it, sold back off, used it as support for a retest. And then it looks like we're coming back up. So let's see if this can maintain its momentum to the upside. That one looks pretty good. Denison Mines, you can see the support line in through here. Came back, and I think we're probably going to go sideways a little bit longer. Downward to sideways. Above this support line is what I'm seeing. UU. Again, we came down. This was our first punch higher. We had two small down days. We punched higher, but the buyers didn't have anything. So I still think it's going to be more consolidation, and hopefully it stays above this support line. So I think we're going to kind of just go back sideways until we get another big bullish engulfing to push us higher. UEC, looking at this guy, very similar to all the other ones. We're coming on down, big selling pressure, popped higher, selling pressure. We're moving sideways, and I think it's going to continue sideways until the buyers step in and change it. It's that simple. UROY, again, I think we're going to go sideways to lower a little bit longer before moving on up. I'm just not seeing the candlestick patterns develop where I think we're going to go. Like here, we were moving on sideways to down. We had a bullish piercing here, a little bit of sell-off candlesticks, which means we may head lower. It headed lower. Then we had this nice big bullish engulfing right here. That's a nice, good pattern to move on up. And then the buying pressure stepped in right in here. And then boom, punched higher. I think we have a little bit more consolidation before that happens. Deep yellow is looking a little bit better. We got some, I kind of drew this in here, some support through here. We came down, tagged it, punched higher, came down, and we're probably going to zigzag a little bit before moving on up. Usually these create a little bit of a base, kind of like a zigzag through here before moving on up. And the zigzags before, and then the eventual impulse move higher. Forces Metals is doing the zig and zagging right now. We've got this support line underneath it. And right here, I think it's pretty good to pick some shares off. I actually bought some in there, but I think it doesn't look too bad. We'll see when it goes. It's could be any time. Goviax is another one. I put the support line down here because that's kind of where the majority of it is. You could even put it at 28 cents. But it is coming down. It looks like we're trying to put down a bottom with this bullish piercing. I think we got maybe a little bit longer to go before we head higher. Global Atomic. This one looks like it could go a little bit lower. Big sell-off. The buyers are trying to push this higher, but they've got no traction at all. Another bearish engulfing here. We could head a little bit lower, and our support's underneath it at around $2-ish, a little bit above $2. Here's International Consolidated Uranium, the support-ish area underneath. And we've got some bearish engulfings here. We're coming up into a pattern. It looks like it broke to the downside. I don't think it's going to go too far down, but we'll see. We'll see where this thing goes tomorrow. Here's a national, this is Kazatomprom. Again, we could roll over here because the buyers aren't stepping in. We're not just flinging higher anymore. It looks like it's struggling to go higher. So we may go sideways to lower. Boss Energy, again, we're still in this consolidation pullback mode. I'm looking for some movement sideways. Peninsula Energy, you can see a lot of support underneath it at about 14, 15 cents. and looks like we're still consolidating. Blue sky looks like it's trying to put on a little bit of a show here, going on up, small volume. We do have support underneath at 28 cents. Now, Laramide looks a little bit better than the others. We had a bullish engulfing here. It came down, buyers equaling the sellers. That's why the price isn't moving up or down, really. We put in a bullish engulfing. We could head higher if the buyers step in here. Encore Energy, it looks like we're just moving sideways. We're consolidating. Here's the support line underneath it at about $1.30. So that one looks all right. It's coming to a point here. Very soon it's going to go break down or up. But that's what I'm seeing. And if I didn't chart your ticker symbol, they all look roughly the same. So in my opinion, I think we're still got to move sideways. And it could move sideways or consolidate for a good while longer. Doesn't mean that we're just going to come back and then fire on higher. Usually what happens is it consolidates long enough where the majority of people lose interest and they sell and go somewhere else. And then the price chasers will eventually come back into the stock later, chasing price like they always do. And what they do is they ride it down, they lose a little bit of money, they sell it, and then they get interested in it when it starts to go back up. They chase it again, and then they make like hardly any money, and then they just repeat over and over and over. They either exit the position at a small loss, or they exit the position at a small gain. Really not improving their life, and just paying a lot in taxes on not much gains. Short-term capital gains tax. So what I do is I buy and try to ride the whole big wave. So I've been holding Encore Energy for a very long time. Well, not a very long time. It's a little over a year. And, it's been about a year. About a year or a little over a year. I bought it at like 20-something cents, and I've just been holding on the entire time. And with the valuations where they're at, there's no reason for me to do anything. And what I do is I cost average in. I would be looking at some of these companies. Something like a Deep Yellow looks pretty cheap. That's one that would pique my interest. Forces Metals looks okay where it's at because it's kind of at that support. Laramide doesn't look too bad. UEXCF, those are the ones that they're kind of piquing my interest. It looks like they're putting in decent patterns. It looks like they've kind of worked a little bit off. But it still may need a little bit more to go before we move on up. If we move on up, we are in the upper end of that channel. If you look at that ETF, we could head a little bit lower in that channel. Don't rule it out. Again, I cost average in. That's what reduces my risk. And I take chunks of money and I just, buy whenever something looks cheap and looks like it's got some support, I add a little bit in. That's how I do it. And if the charts look really good and it's really, really low, that's when I go big. That's when I establish my big positions, is in the beginning. And now I'm just in the accumulation mode and whatever looks good and whatever I want to, quote, fill out, get a little more exposure to. But it doesn't look too bad. Let's see what this entire week brings us. And hopefully we can start putting in some bottoms. But I just don't think it's there yet. If you guys like this content, give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And thank you for listening. This is Finding Value.